Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning into today's webcast. My name is Zina M. Pagan, ARF's Marketing Manager, and I will be your moderator for today. Before we begin learning about why you need paid social, please allow me to go over some house rules. We are aiming to provide the best webcast experience possible. You can help us execute this by keeping yourself muted and keeping your computer web cameras turned off. Unfortunately, if you do turn on your cameras or unmute yourselves, I will have to disconnect your access to today's webcast. The audio will be streamed. This means that you will be able to hear us throughout your computer speakers. However, if you prefer to use a teleconference option, please use the information provided on your screen. Additionally, I will post the information on the chat box throughout the seminar. Should you have any questions regarding the session, please send these to me also using the same chat box. ARF does not own the rights to the presentation. However, the session will be recorded. If you would like to view the recorded event, the file will be available within 2 weeks from today. We are extending the conversation on social media. If you would like to join us, please use hashtag #ARFWebcast. And if you'd like to know what our Twitter handle is, it's @THE_ARF. If you're interested in hosting a webcast of your own, please contact me at zina@thearf.org. We do have a few upcoming events. Just tomorrow, we have our data science event out in LA, so if you're interested in joining that and you're in the LA area, please join us. We also have our webcast. Our next webcast will be January 25th. At this webcast, you'll have an opportunity to see what our updates are for the ARF for the year of 2017. Also, just announced last week, we have a new keynote for the ARF's annual conference. Mullen Lowe's Jose Miguel Sokoloff joins our list of speakers as one of the day's keynotes. Stay tuned in the next few weeks as we make additional announcements. If you'd like to save $400 off your registration, you can do so by visiting our site now. If you're interested in any of these events or other ARF programs, you can check our website for further details or contact me at zina@thearf.org. And without further delay, I present to you today's webcast with Millennial's founder, David Yaros. Millennial is a millennial marketing agency that helps global brands and nonprofits understand and engage the modern consumer. David is also the founder of J-Swipe, the world's largest and fastest growing dating app with more than 750,000 users across 70 countries, acquired by Spark Networks in 2015. He is passionate about human connection, millennial empowerment, and all things #future. Previously, David was the general manager of Mr. Youth, where he ran the youth marketing brands like Coca-Cola, Microsoft, and Spotify. David spends his free time thinking about Facebook ad strategy, studying consumer behavior, and exploring the interplay of presence and hustle. David, are you on the line?
I am. Hello, hello, hello.
I'll let you take it away.
Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. It's really great to be here with you all today, and this is definitely one of my favorite things to think about and to share, so thank you for spending the time and being here to listen and learn. One just quick housekeeping, J-Swipe is not the fastest growing dating app, but rather the fastest growing Jewish dating app, because that was a very big difference just in terms of the user base. Tinder is our friend, and they're blowing up around the world, and that's amazing. We, on the other hand, have about 1 million users, and we're very happy. Okay, so here's an awkward slide with me. My name is David Yaros. I grew up in Miami Beach, Florida, went to college in Boston at a small entrepreneurship school called Babson, moved to New York about 6 years ago, and
can you share your desktop, please?
Hello. I can indeed. 1 second. Let's see. Okay, that should be working for you all right now. Okay, so you've been able to hear me, so I'll just continue forward. But long story short, I've been in the word-of-mouth marketing and social media space for a very long time. Early on, we were doing brand ambassador programs for big brands who wanted to, sort of use social media before it was really an industry. And since then, my favorite thing to think about, learn about, read about, and explore and experiment with has been social, and specifically paid social. So today's conversation is going to be great. You can find me at David Yaros for any questions. I'm also following the hashtag, and we'll have a great Q&A later on in the session. The people that we've worked with are sort of across the board, all different types of exciting brands, from startups to nonprofits to sort of large Fortune 500 brands. And what we're presenting today is sort of the accumulated learnings of all of the things that we've done over the last many years. Essentially, and most importantly, what we're going to be talking about today is the fact that the way that people typically think about social, or paid social specifically, is there's a challenge with the model because it's an outdated model, which we'll talk about. But first, before we get there, I want to sort of ground us in social truths, which are the way that we think about paid social. So I believe the audience for today's webinar, that all of you out there, thank you for being here, is between, let's say, 101 and 201. And the goal of this is to sort of push us up 201 to 301, just in terms of using the vernacular and the thought process. I also, my basic MO is sort of like tell all, full transparency, to share all of our secrets. So as we go through this, I'll be sharing a lot too. So social truths are the way that we talk about and think about social, whether it's in meetings, in pitches, and brainstorms, because lots of people are not all on the same page really of essentially how it works. The first is that social media is not a platform. Everything is social. So lots of people will come to us and say, oh, can we do a social media product? Can you run our Facebook? And it's, of course we will work across Facebook, but the idea is everything, every part of your business, whether from your physical store to your product, to your emails, to your posters, to your billboards, to your packaging, everything is inherently social, right? And so the idea of thinking of social media as a channel, or as a, as a Facebook or your Twitter, is really, really not seeing the broader picture and understanding that how do we socialize every touch point of the user journey, right? We know that word of mouth marketing is the most effective way of influencing someone, is the most impactful means of transferring a message. And so social media and sharing that, word of mouth about something should not just happen on, necessarily online, but how do we design social into your billboard, right? How do we design it into your physical store or property? So if it's a little sign or placard that says, tag and check in with hashtag so-and-so, just to trigger and remind the end user or the consumer or your community across every touch point of the experience. So everything is social. This is something that a mentor and friend of mine, Matt Burden, started saying a little while back, but people are becoming more like brands, and brands are becoming more like people, which is the concept that now, without even thinking about it, I would say raise your hands, but I can't see you. How many of you have untagged an unflattering photo of yourself? Everyone at some point has untagged a photo, and that's because we are inadvertently, either consciously or subconsciously, have become brand managers for ourselves, or for our brands, of course. But the idea is people are becoming more like brands. We're thinking, we're carefully architecting exactly what we're putting out on social, what we're liking, what we're tagging, what we're sharing, etc. And brands are becoming more like people, which means, of course, it goes without saying, it's no longer enough to just have a billboard and have a campaign for a season and expect that to stand out when everyone else is having ongoing dialogue and engagement with their communities on social, a two-way conversation, an open forum for discussion and debate, whatever it is. But in order to do that, the brands need to literally staff people, the community managers, to sort of be on the front lines of the channels and of the community itself. So these people are, leveraging brand personas or brand voice to speak to them every day, whether it's in comments, whether it's in responses to DMs, or whether it's in the posts themselves. The brands now are also having to become more like people and literally staffing people to run the channels. Your channels are your community. So this is the concept that I would suggest to say that as close to your CRM database or your physical, if you have a physical event or storefront, etc., as close to being together in person, the closest thing to that is your social channel community. That's where they're literally living, breathing every day, connecting, experiencing themselves, each other, and your brand. And so we always are thinking about, knowing this, how do we funnel into our community, into our social channels, anyone who comes by, anyone who participates or engages with our brand in any way, shape, or form. So we may touch on later, maybe in the question, something that we call advocacy architecture, which is literally designing advocacy and social sharing across every tier of community member in order to drive engagement, in order to drive awareness, in order to drive interest, in order to drive, organic reach, which we'll talk about. And your community needs TLC. So, this is hopefully understood at this point, but it's not enough just to have a Facebook page, post something up there every once in a while and expect that it will do anything for you. Instead, you really need to have ongoing, ongoing management, ongoing moderation to make sure it's a healthy, safe, and, responded to quickly space. You need to have ongoing content. It needs to be value additive to our lives, right? Especially with millennials, but this is a broader conversation. People want brands to add value in their lives. And if you're in their stream, if you are lucky or have the honor to be in someone's stream because they followed you, if you're not following up with great content or engaging, inspiring, value additive stuff, they're going to unfollow you, and that's a tragedy because that's the closest you could be with them. Of course, last year, the world tipped, and I believe it was the first year that we as people access the internet more through mobile than through our desktops. So the two implications this has for us at our shop are, one, how do we, knowing that everyone who comes through our events, everyone who goes to our stores, just everyone, our entire consumer base, our entire community, has the entire internet, so all the information in the world, a high-powered photo and a high-powered video camera in their pocket all the time, every day. And so how do we leverage that, not just to have them maybe shop for us more, I think that's sort of a one-track mind, but rather to empower them to share, to empower them to steward the brand, to empower them to socialize more of the experience, whether it's sharing on social, sharing on Insta, Snapchat, what have you, whether it's empowering your community to create content that then you guys will source as UGC for your brands and then repurpose, whether it's on your social channels by retweeting, reblogging, resharing, or using it in your media, what have you. Just keeping in mind that everyone who every one of your community members has all of that in their pocket, and B, of course, having everything optimized for mobile. Right, so if your website isn't fully optimized for mobile, and we don't even really think about optimizing for mobile anymore, we think about it as mobile first, which I'm sure you've heard a lot of over the last years, which is the idea that it's not like we're going to build a very fancy, cool, very expensive website for desktop and then think of a way to flip it to mobile. We're thinking of how do we design the most incredible mobile on-the-go user experience of our website and design an equally powerful and beautiful one on desktop. Right, because people are on the go, in Starbucks lines, on the subway, whatever they're doing, traveling at the airport, that's when they're accessing you and the internet most. So if you're not thinking first how to design that experience, and also there's, a good amount of value to this in terms of the advertiser, which is, I think, why you guys are part of this conversation to begin with, in paid social targeting, because there are certain things that you can do on mobile that you can't do on desktop. And knowing that, there are certain things that we would want to drive let's say there's a high ticket purchase item that we're selling. That may not be a mobile sale. I might not get an ad on Facebook and say, oh, that's great, and then click to buy something that's $1,000 whatever dollars. But there's a dance between the different types of media that you distribute and what deserves to be on mobile, and then what then should be followed up with on desktop, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Everything is powered by visuals. So as you know, no brand, for the most part anymore, is posting just any status updates, right? Unless it's maybe an emergency tweet or Trump who's posting. But ultimately, everything is powered by visuals. It allows you to stand out. It gives you the full screen as someone is scrolling through their feeds in order to find them. I think I'm going to misquote this stat, but it's something like the average, again, millennial, forgive me for only quoting stats with millennials, but the average millennial has something like 8.27. The attention span of the average millennial last year is 8.27 seconds, which is less than that of a goldfish memory at 12 seconds. And the joke, and although it's not really a joke, is that it's because we're all scrolling. So you have the flick of a thumb, the time of a flick of a thumb to stand out and get into my mind. right? Get my attention and have me read more. So first of all, everything should be short form. That's why something like Now This videos are taking over the internet, because it distills everything into a short form, highly visual video, tidbit. And most importantly, again, just everything, you should never be posting something that isn't thoughtfully designed in a visual manner, right? That means do away with the days where you're okay with clip art or stock photos, right? Stock photos are so stock photo-y, right? Commission someone to get you a something or some art. Like, there's so much access to unbelievable talent on the internet. It is doing yourself a disservice to use any stock photos. And always, remember that, again, this is the chance to get out, stand out in the newsfeed. For those of you who are from maybe smaller budget brands, it doesn't mean you have to spend a lot of dollars. There are also all of these apps that allow you to do some great, powerful design for social, for your ads, or for whatever it is you'll be using at, for free from an app. So, for example, there's something called Word Swag. There's something called Canva. Maybe we'll send out a list of these afterwards. But all of these are things that allow essentially a community manager, so a non-creative, like not a designer, to be able to take imagery, overlay in nice, clean, minimal, modern, cool aesthetics, text, and create content. There's also something called, well, I'm sure we'll get to this later, something called, I'll save it for later. Okay, moving on. And then ultimately, newsfeed and social sharing are king, right? The goal of all of this is to get into the newsfeed, because if you're not in the newsfeed, it doesn't really matter. There's a stat from about a year ago that only 5% of people are ever experiencing your brand's page on your page, meaning people are seeing your social content on their feed, not on your page. No one's coming to your page. And there's another stat, which is something like only 2 to 10% of people of your community actually even see any given post organically. We'll talk about that soon, which is why getting onto newsfeed and getting people to share, because the more people share, the more of other people's news feeds it will reach, is the most important thing we can do as marketers. And Facebook, about 2 or 3 years ago, was working on something called EdgeRank, which, although they've evolved from here, the important factors remain the same. So the way that Facebook decides, and this is also Instagram and such, what goes on your newsfeed are, forget this crazy-looking equation, but the 3 things at the bottom on the right: affinity, weight, and decay. I use different words. Affinity, weight, and decay. Decay, let's start at the end. Decay is timeliness. So how recent something has been posted will determine how visible it is for you, right? How, if all else equal, if I post something now and a friend of yours posted something 10 hours ago and you go on Facebook, you'll see what's posted now. The next is weight, right? So how much engagement a post gets in the form of like, comment, share, click, view. How much engagement a post gets will determine how visible that post is. So again, all else equal, a post that your friend posts gets 10 likes, and a post that your other friend posts same time gets 500 likes, you're only going to see the post with more engagement. Facebook is going to assume that the post with less engagement is less interesting and not then display that to you, and the one with more is more interesting and display that. And then affinity is, let's call it relevance. How often you engage with the brand on Facebook, or how often you engage with a person, a specific individual brand or a specific individual person, will determine your affinity score. So essentially, all else equal, the person that you friended on Facebook, your neighbor that you friended the first day you got Facebook, but you haven't spoken to on Facebook in 5 years, and you don't look at their photos, like, you're not even seeing them in your newsfeed. But on the flip side, your cousin or your friend or your sibling or kids whose content you scroll through on the regular, whose photos you like, who maybe you sometimes message, Facebook knows that they are that more important to you, and therefore will display that much, more likely and more frequently than those you're not as connected to. So this is important also for brands, because same thing stands. If you post, if you create a channel and then you don't post, your affinity score goes down. Even if you then call out the greatest content ever later, if you're not regularly engaging and your users or community members aren't regularly exploring your brand, your the next time you post, it will no longer be as visible. Okay, so that's the background. We can go into questions there, but maybe save them till the end because now we're going to get into the good stuff. Right? That's 101 thinking of how we view social media. Now, unfortunately for all of us, and I think I could say that universally, for every brand marketer, it is terribly unfortunate that organic reach, meaning the ability to reach people without having to pay, is dead. So you'll hear the term organic reach on Facebook and social. By the way, throughout this, we'll be talking a lot about Facebook and Instagram. Like when I say Facebook, it implies Instagram because it's the same back-end analytics, it's the same ad dashboard, etc. And it also implies social media thinking, meaning the way that these other channels, for the most part, are adopting and adapting to the leaders in the space. It's all relative. So keep that in mind. But the way that they started is they wanted to get brands. The first thing, if you remember, if you were part of this rat race, was community size. It was like, we needed to get there, we need to get our little vanity URL, and we wanted to get as many fans as humanly possible, right? So then everyone was growing fans. There were all these like ad campaigns. There were all these Chinese robot companies where you could buy, fake fans. Then brands were getting called out for getting fake fans. It was this whole crazy thing. The reason why that would be interesting is because once you can grow a community, so let's say 1 million, fans, and theoretically all of those people like you, once that's the case, then as you move forward, you could just post on your page and reach them. That's the idea. That's organic reach. You post it, they see it, period. Unfortunately, I guess, for us and better for their business, in order to become a business, Facebook, and as more and more brands and people started using Facebook or social, they needed to phase out the ability to just reach your people by simply posting. And so again, the stat is something like only 10%, and I think that's outdated now. I think it's 2 to 10% of people will see, of your community, will see any given post organically if it's not boosted. And now what that really means is you basically have to pay to play. There's no longer the ability to just post and presume that everyone is seeing it. In fact, many people who still do think that are missing the boat and very quickly getting overstepped by competitors who understand the new landscape that we play in. So now we're back to the media funnel, which I might save for later. Okay, now's the time. Okay, so what this is not, dear friends, is a 101 conversation about paid social. We just had that a little bit more about social media. And I'm not going to go over the different types of Facebook, how to set up an ad, and there's a lot of stuff you can learn like that for free online. Facebook has something called Facebook Blueprint. It's a whole certification seminar. So this is not that, because that's boring and not additive for your life and accessible everywhere. It's a commoditized piece of information. What I'm going to share with you today, proudly, is our new way of thinking about paid social that has really transformed the way that we're able to perform for our brands. And that is what we call objective planning or media funnel planning. And what that means is we're going to go with some basic assumptions. Assumption number one is we all now recognize that organic reach is dead. You have to pay to play, right? Period. That's a given. And how much? As much as you can. Frankly, I would phase out other things and ramp up these tactics and explore and test and learn and optimize, and we'll get to that soon. So media funnel planning means when most people talk to us or when most people come and think about social media and ask us to, show us the campaigns that they've been running, they are typically, even at 101 and 201 levels, bucketing all of social, all of their customers into one campaign or one type of campaign. Like, let's say you have to sell socks, right? People say, okay, well, we want a campaign to sell socks and we have $50,000 to do it, and we want to sell these 10 units. So what most people do is create a carousel ad. We'll talk about that, which are those things that you swipe through that shows you each of the 10 units. You can have one unit per carousel, which is the little square. I'm also assuming you guys use social, so you have a basic understanding of what these look like if I describe them. It's like the group of squares that you could scroll through and basically presume that they should spend all of their $50,000 trying to push these little square carousel ads that are driving conversion to their entire user base or to the entire Facebook community or to whoever it is. But what they're completely and tragically missing is the fact that because paid social is so unbelievably targetable, measurable, and micro, we're able to really, really, really dial in on the nuances of different targeting and use different pieces of content and different types of Facebook assets or Facebook ad inventory for different stages of the funnel. So we will display something to someone, we will design our media program around the funnel. So there's certain media units that we will display to certain targets that are focusing on awareness. So these are going to be our prospecting ads. These are going to be people who have never heard of our stock company, right? And that's where we'll start running sort of these. Then we'll design a separate set of media units and deliverables and assets for the consideration phase. And then we'll design a separate set to convert them. And then once they've purchased, we'll design a new set around re-engagement, retargeting, repurchase. And so as simple as this sounds, and don't worry, this isn't the end, this is something that honestly, more often than not, people are not doing on social, and it blows my mind. People are mostly focusing on the conversion phase. So they're mostly focusing on buy this, buy this, buy this, and they're running it from a targeting perspective to their broadest audiences, which is, let's call it up top funnel, the awareness phase, and they're just spending money inefficiently to people who aren't ready to buy yet. So what we've done is we've broken up the media funnel into different types of targets on Facebook. You can screenshot this. I believe this will be sent out later, but you'll want this in life. And the idea here is essentially, I'll walk through them and then explain how this applies. This is designed just for conversation purposes for e-commerce. So let's say you can sell your socks online. Okay, the first one is prospecting. We all know what prospecting is. This is going out and getting new people, people who have not heard of you, people who are not part of your email lists or anything. They're not part of your channels. This is hunting for new consumers, right? Cool, prospecting, broadest targets. Next one is engagement retargeting, which means once we use, let's say we use interest targeting, interest category targeting. So let's say we're selling socks, and I want to use prospecting units for people who say on Facebook that they really like socks, but who are not already buyers of our brand. So I'm going to run prospecting ads to interest category targeting of people who like socks, right? Obviously, it gets way, way, way more nuanced, but just for sake of understanding the flow here. Then, and that, by the way, of course, is going to be our widest audience, our largest pool of prospects. Then, a certain amount of them will engage with the ad, whether it's a like on the photo, a share, a comment, a click. They'll take an action with our ad, and that's the goal. So we go from prospecting to the next bucket of people that we will be targeting are engagement retargeting. So people from our prospecting campaign who have engaged with our ad, who have taken an action with our ad, showing in some sense a form of intent, some type of intent, just interest, consideration. Then we'll run a separate campaign targeted to website retargeting. So for people who have engaged with our ads, we'll run ads driving them to the website potentially. And then people who have then engaged with our website, we know where they've gone on the site because of pixels. You can implement something called a Facebook pixel into your site so you can track conversion, cost per acquisition, where they go, etc. And then only people who have been to our website will be then bucketed into a new category and retargeted with ads that have to do with the product that they were searching for. So we've all had that experience where, you know, that thing follows you around the internet. So this is that, but we'll do it in an additive, tasteful, exciting, interesting way. So now from prospecting to people who have engaged with us, from people who have engaged with us to people who have clicked on our website, from people who have clicked on our website to people who have actually only looked at a specific target, that's what they'll see, sorry, specific product. And then people have added it to cart. Oh, we know that they've added it to cart. Great, let's get them to buy, let's get them to close that deal. Maybe then a separate category for people who have abandoned cart. So at this point, you can potentially give them a sale coupon or a discount or just, you know, hit them over the head with more impressions about the cart that they've abandoned. Obviously, I'm being a little sarcastic, but you know what I'm talking about. And then once they've purchased, then they become recent purchasers, and you can hit them with more brand love, more advocacy. Uber is like share 25 for 25, give 25, get 25, whatever, tell a friend, what have you. And then ultimately repurchasing for further campaigns, future, products and such. So we'll get into this a little bit more in depth. What I'm trying to make sure everyone gets from this today is that it's besides the fact that obviously paid social is the most essential thing you could be doing on social, and if you're not going to pay on social, then you probably don't really need to be there. Besides that, it's that the way that you should be structuring and thinking about your paid social is certainly not one size fits all, certainly not one batch of creative because your creative team is strapped with so many other things going on, but hyper-targeted and hyper-nuanced with different creative at different stages of the funnel to drive people further down to purchase and then ultimately repurchase and advocacy. Whew, okay, retargeting. So when I say engagement retargeting, notice back here the second line. Facebook this past year introduced something incredible, which is the ability to retarget people who have done certain things, who have already taken certain actions with your other content online. So, for example, if you have videos, videos are the most underpriced asset on the internet right now on Facebook. So there's a huge arbitrage opportunity by leveraging Facebook video, which is currently underpriced because they want more brands to use it until everyone else does, and once the mainstream does, then we'll have to find something else. But let's say video, right? You're running a video. We are now able to retarget people who have watched your only people who have seen the video. And further, you could retarget people who have seen certain stages of the video. So people who have completed, people who have seen 50%, people who have seen 3 seconds, etc. Lead ad, there's something called a lead gen ad. So let's say you want to, get new customers and you want to get their email or information. You could scrape that through the Facebook lead ad and then retarget people who have already given you their information through a lead ad. Canvas is something that we'll talk about shortly, but Canvas is Facebook's newest, largest format ad unit, and you could retarget people who have engaged with your Canvas, interacted with your page, etc. This is allowing us to spend every penny we spend towards people who are that much more likely or primed to care or buy or engage or share, what have you, right? So this is after you do the broad prospecting, which shouldn't even be too broad, by the way, it should be like very thoughtfully broad, then you should never spend money on people, again, who aren't already taking some form of action with you, whether it's video, watching, or engaging with your content, etc. Because we want to move the funnel, move them down funnel, and then spend our pennies, dollars against people who are primed to care. So this is an example of a campaign that we've run for a client called Birthright, which is essentially a free trip to Israel. And the idea is we are charged with driving awareness to get users or to get students from across the country to understand what the trip is, learn about it, and then ultimately apply. Now, it's interesting because it's a 7 section application. It's kind of a high touch ask, and there's a deposit, etc. And it's not something that we find is done at once. So in the earliest days, before we really started exploring with these or pioneering these types of strategies over the last year or two, so let's say we ran 3 or 4 years ago, we were doing what we're saying you guys shouldn't do, which is we were doing an ad campaign across all these different targets that said basically, come on this trip, it's going to be amazing, right? Or apply here. And then expecting that people who are, let's say, cold leads were going to actually apply here. Take a 7-section essay, and it's just not realistic. So the way that we've split that up is, what I mean to show you to explain the thinking is as follows. At first, you'll get a fluffy brand awareness ad, right? And it's probably going to be video. We think short-form video is crushing it online, at least for us and really for everyone else that we talk to. And by the way, it doesn't need to be like a high production video. It could be something called a cinematograph, which is where it's a photo and then like only one little isolated thing moves. So like let's say it's a fireplace. You take a photo of a fireplace and then only the fire moves. Or it's a motion graphics, so it's a designer instead of a videographer. or it's a animation or stop motion or any of these things, don't think, when I say video, don't think, oh no, scary, expensive prospect, because it really, really, truly does not need to be that. But the first thing you're going to see from us is a short form video stylized after the now this type of stuff. So it's a image with, or yeah, photo with like text overlay, quick cuts, short form, etc. And we'll create a couple of these. I'm not suggesting we only have one video in the awareness category, but we'll create a couple of these to get people interested. It's like, oh, that looks cool. And like, oh, these 17 friends have, you know, liked this already. Ah, interesting. Okay, so the first thing we do is hit them with fluffier, higher funnel awareness. Then we move to consideration. So if you're not familiar with the Canvas ad, you know, email me after and or Google Canvas ad, because you definitely should be. It is Facebook's only full screen takeover opportunity that allows you to design, it's basically, ironically, a canvas. It's a blank canvas for you to create whatever you want, whether it's a little microsite or a lookbook or a catalog, whatever it is. It lives within Facebook, but you touch the ad unit and then it pops open full screen as you see here. It's parallax in the sense that it scrolls down, you can scroll right and left, and it's powerful, especially because now you can retarget from it, right? So then we'll get them with the Canvas ad, which gets them a little bit down funnel. So let's go back maybe to the sock example. The awareness ad would be, these socks are great. Look at all these fun socks. They're, oh my goodness, look at them dancing. And then the consideration ad is going to be probably like a catalog, but like a nicer, cooler, maybe interactive Harry Potter where the photos and images move catalog, right? So I could see and browse through everything. And then only after they've gone through our product library, they've gone through our fuzzy brand awareness, and they've taken action, maybe going to our website, then we'll hit them with the conversion ad. So in this case, it's all the different things that they can do, or all the different trips that they could take, or all of the different socks styles that we provide, what have you. And you can link out in these, this is what I was talking about earlier of a carousel ad. You can link out each of these carousel units. Each of these squares can be something different. They can each link out to a different website. They can each have different imagery. There's also video carousels, etc. So again, product line is perfect for that. Telling a story is perfect for that, etc. And then we're almost done, and then we can open up Q&A. And then it's important that you understand that we're not only designing the type of content differently and the type of ad units differently for each stage of the funnel, but ultimately the type of the way that we are measuring the KPIs, key performance indicators, the analytics, how we define success is different for each stage of the funnel. So we do not optimize, because we're always on optimizing, which is another thing that you have to, it can be, but we don't suggest you just set it and forget it, right? We suggest you have people who care about, watch, and understand how to optimize every part of the puzzle for you, all ongoing. But we do not just optimize against cost per acquisition. Now, mind you, that might sound scary, everything is to drive the cheapest, most cost-effective CPA, cost per acquisition, possible. However, in understanding that our prospecting ads, the video ads at the top, right, the fuzzy brand ads, those are not going to have high CPA. So we're going to optimize those for how much time they've spent on the video, how much time have they spent on the Canvas ad, right, and then optimize those ads to get people to spend more time on those ads. Then for the engagement retargeting, we're going to optimize towards website clicks. For the website retargeting, optimize towards add to cart. And ultimately, all of this is optimizing towards sales. So we are every day connected to and reading all of the sales data. We're understanding what is working, what ads are not working, what products are selling. I don't think we have this image in here, but one of the things that we have is very tightly integrated communication between marketing, sales, product, everyone, right? Like it's not rocket science, and because it's paid social and not a billboard, cool, for respect for people who like billboards and newspapers and TV, but you have down to the penny what ads are working, what ads aren't working, who's converting, what's happening, where it's happening. You have the most unbelievable amounts of data that it should, and it's practically real time, it should all be shared. That should not live in a silo in the marketing group. It should not live in a silo in the media team, right? That needs to go to the product team so that they could see what ads are working. That needs to go to the copy team, to the creative team to everyone needs to see the tech team so they can optimize the landing page and user experience, et cetera. So by tightly integrating communication, you're able to really maximize that. And then we plan spend around the key objectives across channels. So we ultimately, it's not like we plan, we wouldn't say, okay, here's your Facebook strategy. Now, we obviously Facebook is a very heavy component in here, but if we know that our goal is conversion and we know that there's a variety of channels that ultimately will help drive that, we will plan against the stage of the funnel to make sure we're optimizing for conversion. So what that means is, first, we know that Facebook and Instagram and Google, like bottom funnel conversion. We always want to maximize the bottom of the funnel. So we'll spend as much as possible efficiently on the conversion ads. So people who are retargeting and get pixel retargeting, et cetera. Then once that's maximized, we'll spend on whatever the next necessary channels are that would be the best for consideration, knowing the KPIs that we've already outlined in consideration. And then, of course, for awareness, we'll spend the rest on highest funnel awareness. And it's important to note that in our campaigns, when we've spent more on our campaigns that have invested in high funnel brand marketing in conjunction, in tandem with lower funnel conversion media, have outperformed by significant factors those campaigns that are only conversion media. So if you're only focusing on, on trying to drive everyone to buy this ad, by putting out brand content, and I don't mean like this is our brand. I mean really coolly, thoughtfully thinking about it. You are ultimately enhancing the overall spend that you're putting out there. It's tremendous, and I suggest you exploring it. There was a conference I was at recently, and Gary Vaynerchuk from VaynerMedia said something, which is that, and I could have said this earlier, which is that you are not the kind of company you think you are. You are a media, comma, that type of company. So let's say you are a sock company. You're not a sock company. You're a media, comma, sock company, right? Meaning all of this, the success of any company online today is through the content that they're putting out. So you need to be thinking of the incredibly great, powerful, rich content that's going to drive people through the funnel, be engaging, be interesting, et cetera, that's going to actually get people going and interested. All right, last slide, and then we're there. Okay, the future of media planning, these are just some sort of like look out for what's coming. We just talked about objective-based planning. Impact of AI, if you're not exploring chatbots or any type of AI right now, then please do for yourself. It will make yourself more efficient. You can do any form of customer service. There's a company called Intercom. It's a little thing that sits on the bottom right of your screen and pops up and says, hey, how can I help you? Like all of these things are making our lives more efficient. They're helping your consumer find their flow to purchase more effectively. They're reducing the overhead of human hours, et cetera. Creative pretest, so that's AI. So check out chatbots. It's the future. The death of, quote, paid social is, a morbid way of saying that Facebook is now buying inventory from TV, but specifically like web TV companies like Hulu and the other ones. And so essentially Facebook now, from buying on Facebook, you're not just buying on Facebook, but they're going to use their open graph and their open, platform to extend that off of social, which is unbelievable. So you could theoretically soon, or shortly buy targeted TV ads the way that you're buying social ads. Measurement, multi-touch attribution. So if I buy something, if I touch something first on my phone, and then I come back and touch it on the computer, and then I go onto my iPad, and then I buy, we want to be able to understand and attribute measurement towards all of those. So how many touches, how many different devices across, do I need to ultimately get to the purchase? Randomized control tests. Companies like Facebook are giving out at certain thresholds test and control campaigns, so you can actually start to understand and get some third-party powered analytics behind control testing. But anyways, there's a lot there, and we will end with that and open it up for questions. Thank you, guys.
David, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. So I'm just waiting for the questions to pop up. Okay, first question. What is the most common mistake in paid social?
Most common mistake in paid social would have to be, okay, two things. One of them is, we just discussed it, so I won't go into it in too much depth, but expecting a one-size-fits-all campaign, right? Creating a campaign, putting it up there, leaving it, or just clicking the boost button. Facebook wants more people to spend money, so they made, quote, boosting your content, right, on the bottom of each post. It just says, boost this post. Don't ever click that button. It's not an effective way of using your dollars. It's much more effective just to create an ad that targets that post to the end users that you're looking for. So one-size-fits-all thinking, boosting content, and then not A/B testing, right? Facebook makes it so easy to test everything. So every, A/B test ads, A/B test creative, A/B test headlines, and people who are not A/B testing are just, you need to A/B test. It doesn't make sense not to.
Okay. Question 2, how do I learn more?
How do you learn more? I would say the best way to learn more is Google Facebook Blueprints. Facebook Blueprints is their certification course that offers tons and tons of really rich resources across all forms of, and not just Facebook, but just generally paid social thinking, and that's where I would start. There's also, of course, the ARF has a lot of great resources. Social Media Week, if you're based in New York City, is coming up soon. But Facebook Blueprint, free resource, I would check it out.
Next question. What's the typical cost structure for these types of programs?
Okay, so in terms of cost, it depends if you're doing this in-house and you're doing it yourself on direct to Facebook, or you're working with a partner. If you're doing it yourself, it's essentially you're buying out-of-pocket costs on Facebook. You're bidding based on either impressions or engagements or clicks, and you're paying for either cost per action or cost per impression. But I think it's important to note that you can essentially spend anything. So don't let it be scary and cost prohibitive. Don't think you're going to have to spend, hundreds of thousands of dollars to know. You can spend $1,000, you can spend $10,000, you can spend $100,000. The more you spend, the more you can test and learn. But that isn't to say if you're a smaller brand, you shouldn't be spending. It's a mistake to not to spend. If you're working with an agency, it also depends on the spend threshold will determine like the structure. For the different types of structures, usually it's a management fee, so a percentage of the fee that of the out-of-pocket media that you're spending. Sometimes, depending on level of spend, there are upfront costs, like setup costs. Some agencies charge for strategy. Some agencies don't, depending on the commitment. Meaning, if there's a 3-month commitment spending at $20,000 a month, it's maybe included, and maybe they'll waive the setup fees. But different agencies structure it differently. Typically, it's an agency media management fee at very low levels, like maybe 20%, and then as you go up to hundreds or millions, it tiers down from there, obviously. And everyone's different, so there's not really a one-size-fits-all for that as well.
Okay, I think you might have answered this question with your last question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Would you choose one platform over another to do paid social, or does it depend on your target audience? For example, would you use Facebook and LinkedIn with the same message?
Same message. That's interesting. So I would A/B test the message always. And back to, I think it's this one. It depends on what you're trying to do. So if LinkedIn is meaning on at what stage of the funnel and what your objective is, would determine if I would run it with this, like if I would run it A, at the same time, B, with the same content and the same message. There is something about creating a memorable something that will be seen and consistent across. There's something to be said for consistency, right? So that's a good thing across channels, but there is also something to be said for sort of hyper-tailored thinking. So if you're using a carousel ad, how can that be distinctly different than if you're using a link ad, or how can that be different than if you're on LinkedIn and using a LinkedIn ad? So in short, yes, I would keep it a consistent campaign. I would keep it a consistent aesthetic. The copy, I would A/B test to see what works best.
And this is my last question, or our last question. Are there any preferred social platforms to do paid social?
So because of the ability to target and measure and all of the data you get in real time, Facebook/Insta is just like the go-to. And it's not because it's the easiest, it's because you have the most information. You could target on a much more refined level than Snapchat, than Instagram, than all these others. That isn't to say you shouldn't be on the others, but that is to say I would maximize the efficiencies that you could spend on Facebook and Insta while maybe exploring other channels before I spread myself too thin and just, you know, balance the spend across all channels, if that makes sense. But Facebook and Insta, most robust targeting and most robust sort of functionality for the advertiser.
Okay, David, that's all. Those are all the questions that I've got in. Are there any final thoughts that you'd like to share with our audience today?
Thank you so very much for being here. All of this and more is available on the internet in your pocket every day. So if you want to be an expert, or if you want to sort of tap someone on your team to really soak this all up, it's at their fingertips. So it shouldn't be scary. It's really straightforward. It's fun. It's my version of like fantasy football, and I would love to share that with you guys. If you have any further questions, you can find me on all social channels at David Yaris. And thank you for supporting the ARF team. Thank you for having us, and have a lovely afternoon.
David, thank you so much for taking the time to present your work with our Webcast crowd. And to everybody that was able to join us, thank you as well. Hope to see you at our next webcast. Everybody, have a great day.